Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Big Sexy titled Will You Draw Autumn. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen on Spotify. We've got the album art or the single art here for you to check out. And we're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. Will You Draw Autumn with Big Sexy and Alex Goroshko. It's very peaceful, isn't it?
Will you draw autumn falling leaves? Sweet kiss on my lips, seem like a rain over the street, sparkling on the feet. Blow me away with thunderstorm while going home. Listen how bright and shining stars, singing lullabies. Let all your sadness melt and come, warmed by autumn sun. Even if raindrops feel so blue, thinking of you.
I love this.
No place to hide from.
Wonderful entrance for the strings there.
City lights make me sleepless again. I've been caught up in rain. Now the silence become my friend, my best friend.
That parallel major or minor there, it's really cool.
Will you draw autumn lonely streets where summer leaves us to come back another year? Raindrops like cold tears make us so hard in traffic jams with cigarettes.
Continuing forward with the saxophones. Or the trumpet, I suppose. Yeah, I believe that'd be trumpet. This is extremely different to a lot of the tracks that I've heard from Big Sexy over the past year or so. It's a really nice track to end the year on. I really appreciate it. We're going to talk about this track more though in the conclusion. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Big Sexy with Alex Goroshko, titled Will You Draw Autumn. Now what I think this track is about, I think it's about a lady's memories, their experience with the silence that they've befriended there. This person they're missing, the kiss on the lips, they talk about the rain on the street and the weather and everything like that. And you just kind of get the sense that they're kind of asking for someone to help them reimagine what it used to be like. You know, like they're looking at the seasons as they passed in time and everything like that, and they're just sort of trying to live out those memories, I suppose. There's an innate fondness for them. It's a very earnest, it's a sensational vocal performance, to be honest. The technique is phenomenal. We are so attuned to what is required within this sort of jazzy kind of genre that we just suited extremely. The note choices, how we modulate with the different chord progressions, how we voice ourselves and amongst all the other interesting instruments and still maintain presence despite all the other stuff going on is sensational. We have a few different verses in like a chorus section and we make the most of that real estate. It's not a track that has singing the entire time. There's a lot to appreciate in regards to some of the guitar, the multiple guitar or trumpet solos, for example. But it's a piece where it does sort of sound like they're in their room on a rainy night, things going outside. And you kind of imagine them working through all this stuff and kind of calling out calmly in a way that's very soothing to the person they're trying to address. And there's a sense of sort of innate romanticism about it that I really appreciate. I think it's a really thoughtful song. I appreciate the attention to detail in regards not just to the structure of it and the way that we play the different instruments and the different interpretations they have, but just as a sort of a shout out to the overall aesthetic. Because of like the brushes that we have on the kit and the way that the snares and kicks and the rides and stuff are addressed, there's a sense of shimmer and a lack of things being too sort of like blunt. There's this kind of glow to it, a sense of magic that comes from a lot of the piano parts, the strings when they come in later on, the chorus reverb parts on the arpeggiated guitars on the sides, the way that we do roll into those leads so effortlessly after those vocal parts, the way that the trumpet just has so much room to breathe in that later section there, and it's just such a nice foil from the guitar. It's an acute awareness that we have the ability to play with different leads, and it gives different angles and makes the most of a 4:30 track. From an actual compositional perspective, it's incredibly interesting. We have these really not necessarily unique for the genre, these extensions within the chord progressions that stick with the major and minors, but then we also parallel and modulate them in ways that are unpredictable. We explore chromatics. Sometimes we have longer bars and sometimes we shorten them. We don't always have the same amount of length per thing. We allow there to be trails off, and we allow there to be little fills on the drum kit, for example, and amongst the brushwork with the cymbals, kicks and snares, typically working with the dum dum dum. You know, it's not a song that changes a lot in regards to its overall intensity. There's points where it pauses, but it's still a track where there's just so much life to it, primarily because of its overall sort of sound, the different textures and how they interact with each other. But it's also the complexity again of those harmonies, the way they interact with each other and switch over. You're not entirely sure what to think apart from the fact that there's this sweetness and smoothness to the overall sound of it. The tones incorporated, there's not too many blunt parts. There's almost a mistiness, like you're in your own head kind of exploring that environment you're trying to sort of get painted. And it effectively encapsulates this, what I think we're discussing. We're trying to describe, I think, with the music, not just the vocals and the story, but the music, we're trying to describe that feeling of being in the room in the autumn, you know, or like trying to remember autumn, what it was like, what it feels like, you know, that rainy day, the kiss on the lips, that dream, that love that you have for someone, the excitement you used to have, and how you're kind of dealing with the loneliness now as opposed to not having that person and coming to terms with that after that rush. It's a peaceful track though, as a closing comment, because of the lack of those harsh textures. And I think that it's one of the most beautiful songs I've heard, full stop. Not just from Big Sexy, but in general. And I think there is a place in the music industry for that. And I'm glad that they've gotten like 6,000, 7,000 plays on this because they deserve it. It's a wonderful piece. It's incredibly eloquent and articulate and mature in the way it's been written and the way it voices and expresses itself. And I really don't know what they could have done to improve it. It's pretty much a 9 out of 10 for me. And that's an incredibly high score. Like, I don't often give 8s. So for it to be a 9. Oh, I think the theme itself kind of is meant to represent the sort of melancholy you feel in a situation like this. There's no pull towards the happy or sad or anything particularly moody or complicated. It's just like we're trying to figure it out. It just sounds like we've either accepted that we're never going to figure it out, or we're trying to gently, in a way where there's self-care, figure it out, you know. Either way, it's just tremendous. And I think the studio recording, mixing, and mastering is... I mean, it's commercial. It's commercial grade. It's really well handled. It's wonderful. The vocals, the strings, with the smoothness of those harmonies on the sides, pan there, the way they flow forwards, and there's just a natural build there from that point is wonderful. I appreciate the way they flutter in the mix, and they do sound like a recording from the 70s or 80s or something like that. They've got this kind of old-timey sort of vibe to them, I suppose. The keys fluctuate but are nicely presented in the mid to high ranges. The bass and the low end typically sticking with those root notes in a way that's very kind of sparing but also fills in that niche really neatly. There were no red resonant frequencies. The guitars stacked on top, they're in a similar range to the keys. They're moving things forward, the strings smooth, and of course you got the trumpet there fragrant in the midsection when the vocals aren't and when the guitars aren't. That final solo instrument leading us out, wonderful. The leveling is tight. Stereo panning is great. And it's nice and low without pumping. I would say this is probably one of my favorite tracks of this year, without any hyperbole. I think it's got something really special about it, and I want to hear more stuff like this, and I'm going to actively search for it. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching my review of this track from an act named Big Sexy, titled Will You Draw Autumn, and hopefully you enjoy it. If you did, please do go show them some love via the various social medias and Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And this will probably be out around New Year, so hopefully you have a happy holidays and New Year. Spiderhands out.